The Private Eye Princess and Her Mystery Misfits
by T.J.E. Hostetter.
Case of the Crimson Witch. Prologue. It was 1988 when my father, the king, died, and we were forced out of our home, the castle on the hill in the countryside, and having to rent this much smaller castle close to the slums, leaving me to tend to the needs of my beloved younger twin half-sisters and my significantly less beloved stepmother. But I was not discouraged, as my father had left me a grand amount of life insurance money so that I could go to college and one day fulfill my dream of becoming a certified private investigator. After 5.5 long sleepless years, working 3 jobs, I finally became Private Eye Princess Mercia Noelle. But as I was turning my castle into my headquarters, I realized I needed a team that would help me through thick and thin. So I gathered my best friend and college roommate, Bethany Wallace, descendant of the legendary William Wallace, my father's pet, Valor, the not-so-valorous dragon, and hired Cynthia Knight, the wolf girl, to be our secretary. So far, it's been a rather rocky start, as the only cases we've gotten are usually stuff involving cheating husbands and people who are so lonely that they think their houses are haunted. It doesn't help that our landlord, Mr. Malevolent, isn't the nicest booby in the bird bath. But I know our time is coming. I can feel it. And I hope soon, because I need to get out more, or my stepmother's going to drive me more insane than college did.
Chapter 1. Valor's Sister. It was noon, approaching evening. The small castle by the slums wasn't the best castle in the city of New Folly, but a castle was a castle after all. Inside the office, Valor, a red-scaled dragon about the size of a large pet bunny, was sleeping on Mercia's desk. Across from the desk was another desk, where Cynthia, a blue-furred humanoid wolf, was playing the new FPS, Bloom, on her computer. In the back part of the office was another desk, where Bethany, a light brown-haired Scottish woman, was working on her newest invention. All was calm, until suddenly Mercia burst into the room. "Guys, you've got to see this," she yelled in excitement. So much so that Valor woke up and almost fell off the desk. She stood in the middle of the room and spun around, flaunting her attire, which was composed of her tiara in her golden blonde hair and her blue outfit that looked like a cross between a Sherlock Holmes coat and a dress, with the skirt being short in the front and long in the back, exposing her purple pants and black shoes. "What do you guys think of my new detective dress?" Valor rose to his feet and flew over to her. "It looks good," said Valor. Cynthia glanced over for a moment, but only nodded. Bethany looked at it and gave a small frown. She climbed out of her desk, revealing that she was only 4'11", and walked over. "It is indeed bonny," she said in a thick Scottish accent. "But don't you think we should be a wee careful with spending money right now? After all, rent day is coming fast." "Oh, you worry too much, Beth," said Mercia. "I'm sure we'll start picking up steam faster than a hummingbird on over-caffeinated coffee. I mean, I'm sure we've already got something waiting for us, don't we, Cynthia?" "No, not really," said Cynthia, taking only a quick glance at them, then turning her head back to Bloom. Bethany sighed. "Okay, so we're off to a slow start, but we'll make the best of it," said Mercia, trying to stay optimistic. "I'm sure we will," said Bethany. "I'm just kind of getting tired of eating leftovers for tea every evening." "I say it's not our fault," said Valor. "If your stepmother would actually get a job and support us half as much as we support her, I'm sure it could be better. Of course, if your stepmother were to—" "Valor, I told you, you are not going to eat my stepmother," said Mercia. "While she is a dull battle-axe of a woman, she is still the mother of my lovely half-sisters, and we will not rob them of that." "It was worth a try," said Valor, "although I am kind of hungry." "There are some animal digestives in the cupboard over there," said Bethany. "Animal what?" asked Valor. "Animal digestives," said Bethany. "You know, those wee animal-shaped biscuits." You mean animal crackers? Asked Valor. The same thing, mate. Valor gave a confused look before he flew over to the pantry and found a half-full jar of animal crackers. He tried to reach down into it, but his arm was too short. How about we focus on something else, said Mercia. How's your new invention going? Fine so far, said Bethany. They walked over to her desk. The two devices on the table were large wrist braces with screens and controls on them. These are computer braces I call bee watches. Well, those are large watches, said Mercia. What can they do? Well, they can tell time. They can video communicate to each other, use floppy disks, and even play cassette tapes, said Bethany. That's incredible, said Marcia. How did you build these things? With my mind, said Bethany jokingly. Marcia laughed. Where did you get the pieces? Asked Marcia. Oh, well, that's the sad part, said Bethany. You see, I had to take a loan from the bank. What? Said Marcia. Why didn't you just tell me? I could have done something to help you. It wasn't your project, said Bethany. It was my ambition and my choice. Well, how did you get the bank to give you the loan? Asked Marcia. Oh, nothing special. Beth, I can always tell when you're lying, and you know it. You have a slight change in your voice, and you rub your neck counterclockwise while scratching it at the same time. Okay, fine, said Bethany. I put my claymore up for collateral. What? Said Marcia. The Wallace claymore? But that's the very sword your ancestor, Braveheart, used in the epic battle fighting for freedom in the Scottish Highlands. You do know the British executed him and ended that rebellion, right? Asked Bethany. Well, sure, but he still was a symbol of freedom to the people, said Mercia. It's okay, Marcia. I can't even wield it. It's 5 inches taller than me. But it's a symbol to you. It represents your family's honor, said Mercia. Well, wouldn't you be willing to give up your tiara to chase your dreams? Asked Bethany. Okay, maybe, said Marcia. But even if I did, I still have other things my father left me to remind me of him. I have his shield, I have his crown, and we have Valor, our noble dragon. As she finished, they heard something fall to the floor. They turned and saw Valor had gotten himself stuck in the plastic jar in his quest to get the animal crackers. A little help? He asked. Maybe you should sell him to pay this month's rent, said Bethany, as they walked over to him and pulled, trying to get him out of the jar. I'm not that much of a burden, said Valor, as his body wouldn't budge. Am I? Ow! Sorry, Valor, said Mercia. Cynthia, could you come help? One sec, said Cynthia. She paused the game, stood up, and walked over to them. She stood 6 feet tall while she reached down, grabbing the jar. Please no claws. Please no claws, said Valor, as she grabbed him by the tail, but her claws went into him anyway as she pulled him out with a fierce yank. Ouch, he said. Thank you. There was a large ring on his stomach where he had gotten stuck. Bethany reached up and took the jar from Cynthia, while she handed Valor over to Marcia. I'm glad we met you, Cynthia, said Marcia. Well, you are all entertaining to me, said Cynthia. Why don't you tell us where you came from, by the way? Asked Bethany. That is a personal question that has no relevance to the situation, said Cynthia as she walked back to her desk. Well, back to the point, said Mercia. How long do you have until you have to hand over the claymore? 2 months, said Bethany. Okay, said Mercia. So we have plenty of time to put something together to help you keep your sword. You mean I have... No, we are a team and teams help each other, said Marcia. We just need a really good case, something that will not only bring in some nice income, but also build us a great name for ourselves. There came a knock at the door. Come in. The door swung open, and in stepped a pink-scaled, well-dressed dragon. It was Alice, Valor's older sister. They were separated at birth, after being adopted by different people. Alice was adopted by an elderly woman who owned a multi-million fashion company, but a few years ago passed away and left everything to her. Despite their distance, Alice stayed in contact with Valor, much to the young dragon's dismay. Oh man, he said to himself. Well, hello, Alice, said Mercia. What brings you here? Well, I just wanted to see my little brother again, said Alice in a high-pitched voice that had a squeak to it. How's the little fireball doing? I'm fine, said Valor. Really? 'Cause you look a little thin, she said. You need to start working out more and build some muscle. Can you breathe fire yet? Barely, but I'm getting better, said Valor, starting to sound annoyed. And your horns could use a polish, said Alice. Marcia, has he been polishing his horns? I don't need to polish my horns, said Valor. What, you don't want horns like mine? Said Alice as she glossed over her silver horns. I like my horns the way they are, said Valor. Well, that's your loss, little fireball, said Alice. How is business going, Marcia? Oh, we're getting our feet wet, said Mercia. Just our start is kind of shaky. I see. Well then, I'm glad because I actually have a case for you. You do? Said Marcia with excitement. Please sit down and let's hear it. Marcia rushed over to her desk, pulled a chair for Alice, and sat down in her own chair, laying Valor on the side. So what's this case? Well, let me start from the beginning, said Alice. As you know, I enjoy providing as many cheap services to my employees to make up for the fact that our health benefits aren't very good. I say it's a small price to pay for being able to give women maternity leave. But after I heard that you guys opened your own investigation group, I made a special policy that says if employees need help, that I will personally hire you guys to help them if I deem that case worthy. So I'm here on behalf of one of my employees. Oh, well, that's a nice policy, said Marcia. So what happened? Well, 4 days ago, one of my closest models, Miss Kimberly Dove, disappeared, said Alice. Yesterday, however, she finally came in for her photo shoot, and she had been turned into a goose. She was what? Asked Valor. A goose, said Alice. Do you know how hard it is to put human clothing on a goose? I mean, I think she would look good for our upcoming bird line, but that's not for 2 months, and I already have my models lined up for that. Well, do you have any clue as to who or what turned her into a goose? Asked Marcia. Like, did she say anything? She did, but it seems like whatever hex she's under has put some kind of limiter on her speaking ability, said Alice. Once I asked her who did it, all she could do was quack. Sis, I don't think geese are supposed to quack, said Valor. I know, that's why I thought it was strange, said Alice, but also kind of funny. Wait, are you saying that Miss Dove was able to speak, but when trying to give any valid information, she could only quack? Asked Marcia. Sounds like a safety measure to me, said Valor. Agreed, said Marcia. Any other clues? One final thing, said Alice. She reached into her purse and pulled out an egg made of solid gold with a symbol carved into it. She handed it to Marcia. It was heavy, and after looking at it for a moment, they could all tell it was real gold. Did Miss Dove lay this? Asked Marcia. Yes, said Alice. We got done talking, I gave her something to eat, and a few minutes later, just pop, came right out of her butt. Oh, God, said Valor with a slight twitch. Imagine what it felt like coming out. I'd rather not, said Marcia. One thing I can say, said Alice as she reached up and pointed it to the particular crest on the egg. I do happen to know that this symbol is the crest of Fiona Versilo. She's a wealthy businesswoman in this city. How do you know her? Asked Mercia. Oh, I keep my eyes and ears open, said Alice. When you're rich like me, businessmen and women tend to try to make deals with you, even if you didn't ask them to. So I keep a list of all the rich people within a 1,000-mile radius. Paranoid much? Said Valor. Well, that. And there's also the rumors that she's a witch, said Alice, staring her brother down. What? Said Valor. They call her the Crimson Witch because it's said that every time she runs a rival out of business, she uses their tears and the tears of the workers who lost their jobs to make wine. Valor froze. Well, we're going to find out, said Marcia. What? Yelled Valor in a panic. We'll take the case. What? Valor jumped and flew into the cupboard and closed the doors. You know I don't like this kind of scary stuff. Oh, what do you have to be afraid of, Val? Asked Alice. Even if she is a witch, we dragons are immune to negative effects of magic. but not immune to the familiars that a witch can summon or the other nightmarish stuff they can bring into the physical world, said Valor. Oh, don't worry about him, said Mercia. Do you know where this Fiona Vermiculo lives? Her manor is down on Outskirts Street, said Alice. Just outside the road that takes you to the woods. We'll look into it, said Mercia. I'll call you when we have news for you. Good, said Alice, as she stood up. Now, I'm going back to my work so I can get Kimberly to lay a few more of those eggs before we turn her back. Might as well make a little something off this. You can keep that egg. Think of it as an accepting bonus. Thank you, said Mercia. That's very kind of you. Just go easy on Miss Dove. Alice walked out of the office, closing the door behind her. Well, looks like we have ourselves a case, said Bethany. And best of all, you're going to be able to keep your ancestors' claymore, said Marcia. Are those bee watches ready for testing? I guess now would be a good time, said Bethany. She walked over to her desk and picked them up. She handed one to Marcia, and they both strapped them to their left arms. Maybe after this we'll be able to afford one for Valor and Cynthia, too. Why again do you make me come with? Asked Cynthia. Because we're a team, said Marcia, and teams stick together. Also, you're stronger than all of us, and you're good at intimidating people. Fair enough, said Cynthia, as she turned off Bloom and rose to her feet. Valor, come on, said Marcia. Oh, you don't need me, said Valor, refusing to come out of the cupboard. I'll just stay here and hold down the fort. Valor, you are coming, said Marcia. We're all in this together. Cynthia walked over to the cupboard and opened it. She grabbed Valor by his tail and pulled him out. Now, let's go solve ourselves a mystery. They all exited the office, while Cynthia dragged Valor, his claws grinding against the floor, but Cynthia was just too strong. Marcia locked the door behind them, and they were off.